Raising the bar is one of the highest virtues of our society. We constantly urge ourselves and each other to do more, earn more, accomplish more, be more. A bigger house, a nicer car, more money. We want to live up to all expectations and force ourselves to have and do it all. But will this bar ever be raised high enough? I'm not so sure about that. Because there will always be some higher bar, a bigger fish, or a fancier Instagram profile waiting down the road. My name is Sebastian, and I paid the price for this lifestyle. Not once, but twice. I faced the darkness of both burnout and depression, and I decided to be open about it. Today, I will share my ideas about how to raise the bar in a more balanced way. 10 years ago, the sky was my limit. In my early 20s, I was running a successful software company and was listed as one of the most promising entrepreneurs in the Netherlands. Then, suddenly, everything fell apart, or perhaps I should say, I fell apart. I literally traded my office chair for my mother's couch and was lying there for months. Couldn't get any work done. I was totally burned out. Looking back, I now realize that there was no work-life balance whatsoever. I managed my companies, but I failed to manage the most important thing of all, myself. My entire business depended upon me, so when I break down, my company was on the verge of breaking down as well. Ultimately, it took years to find the balance that I needed. Now, suppose you're lying there on your parents' couch. You're not insured, you feel responsible for all people on your payroll, and you do not even have the physical and mental energy to go to the supermarket, for crying out loud. Now that's rock bottom, right? At least that's what I thought back then, because 5 years after my burnout, I faced another mental challenge. At that moment, I had finally learned to delegate. I borrowed a lot of money from the bank to hire some extra people, reorganize my business, and start a new one along the way. And then, within 1 week, I lost a major client. I had to face the fact that my business model was simply not working. And I was nearly bankrupt, while I had to provide for my family with 2 young children. And on top of that, I heard that my brother Christian would be born with an incurable heart disease. Tragically, he died 2 years later. Now, back to the storm of that 1 week. I broke down again. And this time it felt as if the entire world was crashing down on me, with me being in the center of the storm. There was this dark cloud of anxiety that fell upon me. I couldn't see light in anything, and I was facing a serious depression. Fortunately, after quite some struggle, I managed to get back on track once again. In the years that followed, I reorganized my business, made it successful again, and ultimately I even sold my company. Looking back, both the burnout and the depression really helped me to grow as a person. Now, let's make it personal here. How many of you have ever faced similar experiences? Come on, I want to see some hands. Burnout. Okay, I see some hands. A depression. Okay, thanks for your honesty there. Applause for yourself. Now, let's take a look at the statistics. We are currently with almost 17.5 million people in the Netherlands. Roughly half of that population is comprising the working population, about 9 million people. Now, when we zoom into that working population, we see that almost 1/3 is experiencing severe stress at work. This means that almost 3 million people in the Netherlands alone are often stressed out. And on top of that, 1 out of 7 people face burnout symptoms nowadays. Imagine that. It actually means that in this audience, at least 100 people should have actually raised their hands. To me, this exemplifies the taboos surrounding such delicate topics. I mean, in our society, things like mental weakness, insecurity, and failure tend not to be discussed. Instead, we are conditioned to stay in our lane, always go that extra mile, and exceed the expectations. We should always be strong and show no weakness. Now, imagine this. When you break your leg, you go to a hospital. Friends and family come over, bringing fruit baskets and flowers. But what if one of your friends faces depression? Are you going there and say, "Oh, that sucks, man, a depression? Tell me everything about it." That's not quite a typical reaction now, is it? Because a depression is perceived as a little bit scary and weird, right? But let me tell you this. A depression is not quite something to be ashamed of. It can happen to anyone. Now, let's go back to the statistics once again. At this moment, over 1 million people in the Netherlands alone are facing depression or have been facing a depression in the past 12 months. And almost 3.5 million people in the Netherlands will at some point in their lives face depression. Now, when we translate all this mental misery into hard euros, we see that the cost of absence due to illness is costing the Dutch employers 11.5 billion euros a year. 22% of that accounts for psychological complaints such as burnout and depression, which means that all this mental misery is costing the employers in the Netherlands over 2.5 billion euros a year. We have come to a point where we cannot ignore all these statistics anymore. These are hard facts. What is happening here? There are some problems in our society that I would like to address now. In the first place, we live in a performance-oriented society. We all know the typical reaction to the question, "How are you?" right? Busy, as if it's something positive. And it starts in elementary school already, because when we receive our grades, we go to Granny, and she says, "Oh, you did so well," and treats us with some candy, right? And then the summer holiday starts, and after the summer holiday, it starts all over again. And this process repeats itself until we're done with school, and then real life starts, and then we have key performance indicators and deadlines, and it's always output driven. This brings me to my next point, because I feel we are measuring the wrong things. Before my burnout, I was only addressing the issues of the day. I was not chasing my dreams, I was not chasing my purpose, I was only chasing money. Now I see so clearly that I was totally conditioned. Now, be honest with yourself. Are you doing the things that you love? Or are you playing it safe and accepting a boring job for way too long just to pay your bills? We should learn to become more purpose-driven. The way I see it, a job should not only make a living, but should moreover make sense. Third, there is information overload. I mean, we get bombarded with emails and CCs and distractions on our timelines. It's quantity over quality, really. We collectively suffer social media addiction and the fear of missing out. Expectations are also a factor that contribute to all the mental breakdowns. We tend to raise the bar way too high for ourselves and the people around us. In addition, the grass is always greener at the other side of the fence. On social media, we only tend to publish highlights. We show ups, no downs. But is that truly reflecting the way life really is? Next, we are adopting a lifestyle that's not quite beneficiary to us. I mean, when we are busy, we grab that pizza, we cancel a sports session or an evening with friends, and instead of working after a hard day on our own goals and targets, we crash on the couch for yet another session of Netflix, right? Okay, I must confess that I'm often guilty as charged, but basically we tend to numb ourselves instead of nurturing ourselves. In the depths of my burnout and depression, I learned some valuable lessons. I looked at myself within and started asking myself these questions. Who am I? What are my talents? What do I want to do in life? What is my purpose? Now, I would like to share some tips and strategies that helped me to this very day. First, we live in a society where we are pretty much conditioned to engage in a rat race. We should learn to enjoy the process of climbing the mountain rather than jumping from peak to peak only. The way I see it, a burnout is nothing more than an energy deficit. You do more things that waste energy than things that provide energy, you know? Figure out where your energy is leaking. And now my next tip, pause to reflect. How often do we allow ourselves to take a step back and see things from a broader perspective? Take the helicopter view. I now force myself to do this at least once a week. I crash on the couch, my own one this time, not my mother's, and I grab a piece of paper, put away my phone, and start writing and mind mapping. And this greatly helps me removing the blinders blocking my sight. In line with my previous tip, the third one, practice gratitude. Research has indicated that when you regularly reflect on the things that you're grateful for, you tend to become more satisfied and optimistic. How can you do that? How can you practice gratitude? By counting your blessings and expressing them. Now, each time I tend to write down 3 to 5 things for which I'm grateful. And these can be small things, such as the sun shining on your face, or larger things, or even things that are not really positive. For instance, when my brother died, it was a tragedy, but I'm also grateful for the years that he has lived. Now, tip number 4, one of my biggest habits is hacking myself. At some point, I had to confess that I had a social media addiction. I was constantly mindlessly scrolling, you know, and when I did, I rigorously deleted all social media apps from my phone and started downloading health apps instead and using the time that I used to spend on social media on my health. And I'm a nerd with both an Apple Watch and a Fitbit, and this greatly helps me to, you know, monitor my health and gamification of my health, actually. I must confess that sometimes I push this a little too far. I mean, my girlfriend is asking me often, how are you? Or should I ask your Fitbit? My 5th and last piece of advice, let's cut the crap altogether. Don't take yourself and the world around you too seriously and see things from a broader perspective. With cut the crap, I also mean dare to be vulnerable. Future leaders should be open, expose their true feelings, show that they're human too, not being a gorilla on a monkey rock pounding his chest. Looking back, my depression was also a result of the fact that as an entrepreneur, I derived my self-worth and identity from my company. It was also an ego problem, so I should have cut my crap there. Now, when it comes to raising the bar, I would suggest don't just raise the bar, let the bar raise you. When you are chasing the expectations of yourself and all the people around you, or you are merely striving towards goals or targets, then in fact those external metrics are in charge of you rather than serving you. But you should be the one in charge. Now, coming to an end, today I kind of shared all my darkest secrets here on stage with you. I really hope that this will be the beginning of many more people truly opening up, sharing their stories, and cutting their crap. Thank you very much.